All right. All right. My name is Ivor Bridgewater. I'm here with High Point University's History Detectives and the William Penn Project, and I'm interviewing Mr. Julius Clark. How you doing today, Mr. Clark?
I'm doing well. I normally say if it's any better, I couldn't stand it. I'm doing fine.
All right. Well, I just wanted to have this interview with you to just to get to know you a little bit better uh, and to understand your high school experience, because that's something to us that we want to dig deeper into, and we want to understand. Um, we want to understand high school from a desegregational point, because we haven't experienced that.
High school from a desegregation point. I'll tell you, I think it was an honor and a privilege to attend William Penn.
Hmm.
I don't think I would have wanted to have it any other way, because we were fortunate to have teachers that grew up in the community, worshiped with us, and was a part of the family. I mean, we were a close-knit group, and the experience at William Penn and growing up in the community, it was just like having a family reunion almost every day. You saw people that you knew and people that you didn't know, wasn't familiar with. When you got around them, it was just a wonderful experience. The educational aspect of it was knowing that they had your personal interests at heart and they wanted to make sure that you succeeded. I was in the very last class of William Penn, class of 1968, and I'm very proud of it. And I think our class, and I know there's others may differ, but I thought we had the best class, because from that last class we could reach back and absorb all of the experiences and that the other classes had left for us to learn by. And so I think we were very gifted. Our class turned out to be very gifted because of the experience that we had gained over the years. Also, knowing that our people were from different parts of the city was a good experience, because when we got together we would share what we were going through, because during that time trying to maneuver and get through life, in a sense, everyday life, dealing with the oppositions that we had and the challenges, was very strenuous. But we had one place that we all could gather, and that was at Washington Terrace Park. I remember that very well. That was our place that we could sort of let our hair down, for those that had hair, and we could just have a good time. And at one time we would just gather there, and we could see cars from all over the country would come to High Point for some reason. We see cars out of state, and they would come to have picnics, and so we knew we was very fortunate that all we had to do was just sit and wait on the cars and the buses to arrive. But we had a unique park. It was different from any other park in the state. We had a park that had a dance floor on the top of the building somewhat.
Mm.
It was cement floor on top of the building with the jukebox. But you could stand there and look across 27 acres of land and 27 acres of different activities going on at one time. So it was an experience of just camaraderie, unity. It was just a special time back then. It's nothing like it is today. As I was telling you earlier, we knew one another, or we knew of one another. We knew the families. And so therefore, we were closer than they are today. I don't see the closeness that we profess to be. Even when these seemingly holidays come up, they try to pretend that they're close, but as soon as that day is gone, so are they. They seem to get away from each other, and I don't think that's good. And I think that's probably the reason why we're in the situation we're in today.
Well, Mr. Clark, can you tell me what about William Penn has stuck with you the most?
Well, the first, as I said, I was in the last class, but one of the things that stuck with me the most, guidance. I had someone always looking out for me. I pretty much came out of the Seventh-day Adventist faith. I came to school, and right off the bat, they knew I was different because I didn't come from the same area they came from. I came out of an institution that was a little different, a lot different. But what I remember most was there were people at William Penn that knew of me even before I got there, but took me under their wing. And I'm going to mention this one person because she was from the same denomination, and that's Miss Verdi B. Kendall. She was my biology teacher, but she also was my homeroom teacher. And she would always press upon me that I had to set an example. And I didn't like to wear that hat. I just did not like to wear that hat. I told her I just couldn't do. She said, well, you do the right thing, and that would be an example enough. Do what you're told to do, and you'll be fine. Do your work. And there was another woman, Mrs. Moorhead. Mrs. Moorhead. She was another inspiration in my life. But again, I could name all the teachers because each one of them had a vested interest in you, and they wanted to make sure you were successful. And I was telling you earlier, when I came out of Griffin, I only did 1 year in Griffin, but as you looked out of the window at Griffin and you were looking up the hill at William Penn, you had that desire and that drive in you to know that if you could get to that hill, get on top of that hill, you knew that you would be successful. And that's what the teachers always encouraged us, that you had to get to William Penn. And we believed if you could get to William Penn, graduate from William Penn, that alone in itself would be the essence of success. And they would make sure that you had the keys and the knowledge to be successful in society. So I attribute a lot of my success to listening to those folks that took an interest in my well-being. And so those are probably one of the most experiencing things that I had. And I remember Mr. J.W. Atkinson, physical ed teacher. I remember one year I was playing ball in intramural ball in baseball. And back then we didn't have those cloth pads that for bases. We didn't have that, and so I managed to hit the ball, and I thought I had a home run. It looked like it was a home run, and I took off running around the bases, and I went to slide into home plate. And I remember this because I have the scars on my leg to prove it. I slid in home, and it peeled the skin off of my thigh. And it was a cylinder block buried in the ground, and I'll always remember. And the only thing I could do was call out for my brother. And Mr. Atkinson, for some reason, he made sure that someone went and got my brother. I was bleeding, but it wasn't that bad off. But it's just the fact that I looked and saw my skin laying on top of that cylinder block, I knew something was wrong. But that was probably one of the fun parts. But then when you go to assembly, and you listen to the wisdom that was coming out of Mr. Samuel E. Burford's mouth, and his instructions on life and direction on how to be successful, and then you hear the other teachers come behind him. They had their idea of what success was. All we had to do was follow the plan. And when the civil rights part came in, that was something. But it had already happened before. And the biggest part had already happened before we got there. But we watched our community leaders come together. That's, again, what we don't have today. The leaders came together and formed a plan on how we could get through this. And I think the nonviolence was already here in High Point. Long before Dr. King came here, nonviolence was here. They talked to us, and like I said, we had the ministerial leaders that actually, because then most families went to church. That was back then. A lot of folks, most families went to church. So when the community leaders, the ministerial leaders would give you instruction, you pretty much followed them. And so that was a calming sense with us. We knew we had leaders that we could believe in and follow. And today we don't have that. There's a lot of people that are standing up and professing, but in which direction are you trying to lead us? I mean, we're not going anywhere, so therefore the direction is non and void, as far as I'm concerned. But Again, I guess people say I complain a lot, or I have different views, and somebody told me something in William Penn. She said, you think out of the box. You think different from others. That's what makes you special. And I never thought of myself as being special, but I think I've been around special people. And so to have learned from them is an honor. And so I just try to tell people, I'm just trying to do what you told me to do. One of the things they said was when you grow up, give back to the community, reach back, pull somebody along, teach them, help the young people. That's all I've been trying to do. I mean, all my life, that's all I've been trying to do. And I want to make sure this goes on record because the Rosetta Baldwin African American Museum was created to honor the legacy of Miss Rosetta Baldwin and her family and other African Americans in High Point that made a contribution to the development of High Point. We're standing on the shoulders of folks here in High Point. I understand the education of Dr. King and W.B. Du Bois and Carver. I understand all of that. George Washington Carver. I understand all of that. But the people that taught it to us and the importance of it is the people that I thought should be reminded of, should be remembered, and be taught to our younger people that we're standing on the shoulders of some folks that came through some tormented times. Because Miss Baldwin started her school in 1942, but even prior to that, growing up in the 20s and being born in 1902, to live through the Depression and to be able to get to the other side of the mountain, you have to understand the history in order to find your strength. I think young people don't understand their strength and their ability because they don't know the history. And once you learn the history, you find your inner strength and you realize the things that you can do. And when people tell me I can't do, well, that's already the line of defeat. There's nothing you can't do if you put your mind and your heart. And I'll always say that growing up over here with Miss Baldwin, she always preached the biblical aspect of life. You have to have that in order to live in life. And going to school over here, as I was telling you, you had to have a switch in order to keep you in line. And she would tell the parents, if you don't want me to beat them, don't leave them here because they're going to mind me. And that was the present. And Miss Baldwin would, she had one bad thing though. She would tell the parents on you if you acted up in school. When the parents come to pick you up, and then she'd give the parents a switch for the parents to beat you in front of the students. And so that was the thing that probably kept a lot of our people in line, because the worst thing that happened to you is to get a whooping in front of your classmates. Mm-hmm. And so you don't want your